more you listen, the more you know. This is Good Politics with Dr. Wilson and Adam Whiteman.
And we're back. So we did a lot of interesting things in the last segment, but now
we've got a very interesting topic.
News is breaking.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked before on this show, Adam, about the China thing, and we've talked about it from multiple angles. One of the things we want to talk about is the new agreement that has been reached between the United States and China, what's called the Phase 1 agreement. Have you heard anything about it?
No. It just that all I heard was Trump is finally making deals with China.
Let's hear him talk about it. Play clip number 6.
But we've come to a deal on intellectual property, financial services, a tremendous deal for the farmers, a purchase of from $40 to $50 billion worth of agricultural products. Another big issue that we've come to conclusion on is currency, foreign exchange. We've also made very good progress on technology transfer, and we'll put some of technology transfer in Phase 1. Phase 2 will start negotiations almost immediately after we've concluded Phase 1 and papered it.
Okay, so let's talk about Phase 1. He said that we have come to a deal on American IP and a couple of other things, but is that true? What are the details? Is this good for us?
Well, the one thing that's pretty clear about Trump is, he's always selling, so he talks a lot. But the truth is, some of those agreements that he's talking about are agreements to agree. I mean, we have to wait till we get everything down on paper and to see specifically what is there. But it does look very interesting. And what we want to do is talk about who won. I mean, I think that's the most interesting thing.
Right.
It looks like round 1 went to Trump, and let me explain why. What's going to happen under this agreement for sure is that major farm purchases above the 2017 status quo are being offered in exchange only for halting future tariffs. Now think about this, Adam. China is agreeing to buy more farm products up to double the amount that they had been buying before the dispute began. I think they'd been buying 21 billion. They say that now that they're going to buy up to 50. It doesn't mean 50, up to 50. Substantial more. And what they're giving in exchange for those purchases is simply that future tariffs not go into effect. Hope you understand, Trump began to use the tariff, and that brought China to the table. And then they got in this squabble. China backed out of the agreement that looked like it was going to happen over the summer or right before the summer. And so Trump gave us more tariffs. And so then he was going to do even more tariffs in the future. And all that this agreement seems to do is China saying, look, we're going to buy up to twice the amount of farm products we did from you before we had this dispute.
Just stop the tariffs.
Right.
Stop new tariffs.
Right.
Stop
new tariffs. Now, tell me, why do you think the tariff is an issue? We talked about this before.
An issue for China.
An issue. Well, that's what it's a trick question. Give me the answer.
Well, if I remember correctly, China, 5% of their GDP, something like that, was from America buying their products. So that really hurts China, but it also increases prices for our companies and for our consumers.
Okay, so right. So the tariff, the subtext here is that the tariff hurts both countries.
Right.
And Trump was facing internal political opposition from his own party because of all these tariffs. Now, you'll notice that opposition began to escalate. The first round of tariffs went through, and it looked like we were getting close to an agreement, and people were saying, wow, this is interesting. And then China said no, and they walked away. And then Trump started doing the extra tariffs, and that is when it began to be serious opposition against him within his own party. You'll notice that when I mean party, I mean the donor base, broadly. I don't mean like the senators. There began to be opposition in the Wall Street Journal. We talked about Scaramucci having his problems.
Yeah, there's the hedge fund manager.
Right. So the tariff thing began to be something that was hurting him, I believe. And there are forces inside his administration that were saying, look, we can't keep doing this. And to look at that issue, let's play clip number 7.
Specifically when Ambassador Lighthizer jumped in to talk about the December 15th tariffs. Reporters were asking for some clarification on what would happen with the tariffs because that was left out of the bullet points that the president read off. And Secretary Mnuchin was the one who said that the October 15th raise would not go into place, and then asked about the December 15th tariffs, which will be the most painful for the American consumer. Ambassador Lighthizer, you could sense that he had some heartburn about those tariffs. He expressed some relief by saying there is a lot of time to work those out, essentially trying to communicate that if certain advisors have their way, that those tariffs would not go into place. I know there are many principals who share that view, but to hear that from Ambassador Lighthizer, who has been a proponent of the lion's share of these tariffs up until this point, I thought was a striking reaction.
So Kayla, is the implication, therefore, that the December tariffs do not go into place provided there is ink on the paper in 3 weeks' time in Chile on phase one of this deal?
Correct. That's the right way to read this.
All right. So that's the right way to read this. But no, okay. So she's basically saying all we did was promise to stop the tariffs that could have come in December.
Now, be careful. All that we did is say the future ones that we haven't announced yet, the future ones that we were going to do on top of all of these others.
Not just December. We will just stop at new tariffs.
We'll stop if you buy more farm products. Now the subtext is this is what's unsaid. Okay, we're digging now, looking at what's unsaid. The idea is if they start making these purchases, and if they get this agreement in ink within 30 days or whatever, then it looks like the silent thing here is that we're not going to do the December tariffs. We'll take those back. Now, why were they December tariffs anyway? Well, if you remember, they were tariffs that inside the Trump administration, business people and so forth were saying, look, these tariffs are going to hurt Christmas. They're going to really hurt the American consumer. This is starting to pinch too much. And Trump said, okay, I'll move them down to December. So that those tariffs are actually hurting, some of his constituencies.
Oh, he moved the tariffs for the holiday season, so that the prices wouldn't raise before Christmas.
Right. So he had a set of tariffs that went into effect in September. Those were the new ones, and a piece of that September tariff, he put back and said, "We'll wait on some of these goods here. We're going to wait until December to do it." But the ones that China bargained to get rid of were ones that were not yet even there yet, the ones that he hadn't even yet done. But the subtext is that now we're talking that looks like maybe those December things will come back after all.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say to you is the silent thing here is that there is going to start to be a rollback. Okay, and he hasn't announced that. Trump hasn't said yes to that.
What do you mean a rollback? A rollback on those tariffs?
On December. That won't take place.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, so anyway, that's the interesting thing. Now, I want to do two things. I want to notice that, at least as of the time that I did my research, China state media and the Ministry of Commerce made no comments on the agricultural purchase commitments after the meetings. That tells me that China was a little embarrassed by it. I'm trying to say to you this narrative, okay? Listen, I'll just put this right out there. It looks to me like the instrumentality of the tariff was successful. But, as we all know, if you go too far on these tariffs, and they end up hurting both sides. So we felt pain as well. Right. But I believe that the instrumentality of the tariff it looks like in round one that it was a success.
Yeah. China wasn't even telling its own people. They didn't put out press releases, hey, we made a deal with the U.S. because they didn't want them looking at what the deal was.
Well, and let's remember now, this deal is not papered yet, and so we have to see what's going to be on there. There are sweeteners that are promised. One of the things that's promised is that that there's a currency manipulation promise that China has made in there, and I don't know the substance of it. We won't know until we see it. But if it is true that China is talking about backing off currency manipulation, it does make sense that we might say, okay, December tariffs are gone. Now, the other thing to understand is there's talk about a good start on forced technology transfer, and Navarro says we got virtually the entire chapter of what they wanted on intellectual property. Let's play clip number 8.
So, Peter, last question. There are skeptics out there, as you know, saying, well, you're touting a quote-unquote skinny deal because you couldn't get the bigger issues. Push back on that. What is your pushback on it?
We also made great progress on some of the big structural issues. Currency manipulation, we have this in phase one. Forced technology transfer, really good start. Intellectual property, I mean, the chapter we had on the deal that China reneged on back in May, we have virtually the entire chapter.
All right. What should we read here?
Well, I mean, the question is whether who won. And my argument to you is round one looks like the United States got substantially some very significant things. But we have to wait until it gets papered. But I think that the fact that they've broken it up into phases does indicate that phase two and phase three are going to be their own issues, and probably those are going to be a lot tougher, and we're going to have to wait and see.
Your only source for truly balanced politics. Broadcast from Wright State University, this is Good Politics with Dr. Sean Wilson and Adam Whiteman.